Joining me now, first class father Joe Klecko. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
It's a pleasure to be here, especially when you're talking about fatherhood.
Well, I'm honored to have you. Let's start right there. How many kids do you have? How old?
Well, I have 5 children. My oldest is 47. My youngest is 26. There's 21 years difference between them. My wife and I had two children while I was playing pro football. And then we had 3 children after my wife. And we actually had 3 kids after my wife was over 40. So our last daughter was Mo, and my wife was about 44, 45 years old.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, I'm actually the youngest of 7 in a blended marriage. My oldest brother is about 23 years older than I am. So
Yeah.
I know a little bit about it. And if you could, Joe, please, for the people who don't know, take a second to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a ex-professional football from the New York Jets. Okay. I was, I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania, in Chester, Pennsylvania. My wife and I are married 47 years, 48 years rather. And she was my high school sweetheart. And we got married my senior year in college. And we've been happily married for 48 years now.
Yeah, wow, incredible. Obviously, you had a legendary NFL career. And what really led me to you here, Joe, was a couple of years ago now. I'm a full-time railroad mechanic here in New Jersey. I've been doing that for a little more than 2 decades.
I just passed a bunch of them down on, I forget what road is that. They're doing cutting a new railroad line in. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they were all on the track, but I as a part-time gig, drive a lot of Uber, and I'm always pushing my podcast when I drive Uber, and I'm always, telling people about it. And one night I had picked up a group of kids, and I was driving them home, and I was mentioning my podcast, and the young lady in the back said, "Oh, you should interview my dad." And he's a ex-football player. I said, "Well, who's your dad?" She said, "Joe Klecko." I said, "You got to be kidding me."
Married Kate, I bet.
Gabrielle, I believe.
Okay, that's my other daughter. She's down in Louisiana now. She's married, and her husband is in the military, and she's in Louisiana. Well,
wow,
very wild, though, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't believe that. I said, you got to try to put me in touch. So I had been trying to reach out. Glad we finally got this going. But take me back, if you could, 30 some odd years then to the beginning of your fatherhood journey, Joe. How old were you when you first became a dad, and how did that experience change your perspective on life?
How old was I? I guess I was 23 or 24 or 23, I think it is. And really, it changed a lot. You really don't know what to expect as a father. And what it was for me was basically, when we had our first child, Michael, it was entering into the NFL too. So it was like boom, boom of exciting times for us. And what was it like? It was exhilarating. I tell you what, and he was probably our worst baby. That's the bad part. He was up all the time, and we always tell him that too. And he was up all the time. So, it was tough on me as far as not getting any sleep, trying to rest her to play football. But my wife handled it really good.
Yeah, you had a kind of a trial by fire there with the first one. It's supposed to ease you into this whole thing, but
exactly.
And so then, what would you consider to be, Joe, the top values that you had hoped to instill in all your kids growing up?
I tell all my kids about truth, and truth is it. It really is it. If you can live by the truth and you live by, not being a phony, I think it's one of the major parts. And then, of course, all basic morals, humility. All the ethics of a good person is what I always instill in them. And, now I'm looking at their kids growing up, and I'm seeing them instilling in some of the same properties in their kids. So, I've always held their feet to the fire as far as doing the right thing. And it has always come out on top because they've always done the right thing.
Yeah, well said, Joe. And so important, and so much that's missing, I think, from our society, from our country right now. And I talk about it because of the breakdown of the family units that we've seen in our country, where so many kids don't have a father figure in their life, and they don't have a place to go and get that kind of structure, those values, those real core values that we need growing up. And I just think that if we had more dads involved in their kids' lives, most of that stuff would start to change. What's your take?
You're 100% correct. I think that the degradation of our society is the family. And as the family goes away, I think nowadays they're saying that 60% of women are having children out of wedlock with no fathers. And it's terrible, and how it's hurting our society, And I believe on the other side of it too is fathers today are having trouble with their children when they want to be their best friend. It says in the Bible, spare the rod, spoil the child, and our Lord even believed in discipline, and I think children look for discipline. They look for structure. They look for that. And of course, you lead by example. When you have that kind of example and your children see what you do, I mean, it's like Sunday, going to church on Sunday, I mean, my kids get hounded. I only have one at home left now. The other four are married. And I still text them the night before, what time you go to mass tomorrow? What time, I talk about it all the time. And I truly believe that without a doubt, in their heart and in their mind, it starts with God. And when you have that instilled in you, you can't go wrong. The reason being is God doesn't do anything bad. And if you follow someone like him, I'd say you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that is the other piece of this puzzle here, the Heavenly Father being removed, as well as the father from the home. And those two things have delivered the 1-2 knockout punch really to our country here. And I'm with you there. I have 3 altar boys in the house. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. My 3 boys are altar boys. We go to church on Sunday. We eat together. We pray together. I think it's such a vital part of their upbringing. And so much, as I said, what is missing. And you mentioned discipline there. Obviously, you were a part of the sack exchange. You were a physical player when you played the game of football, but what kind of disciplinarian were you as a dad with the kids growing up? And is that different than the discipline style you grew up with?
No, I was very disciplined. My dad was tough, and my mom was tough too. I mean, not in a tough way. Mom was always the one we went and cried on after dad had something to do with it. But I grew up in a disciplined family. We had structure, homework structure, church structure, all those type of things we had. And I think that I brought that on with my family. I think, my children were always scared to death to do something wrong, which is a good thing. And it would say the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Something like that. I forget exactly how it goes, but fear is a good thing to have for people. And I'm not like all my kids love me to death. The boys come, they hug me, they kiss me, they leave. And the girls, of course, they always did that. But, I always felt that, having my kids close to me, to my heart, close to me type, is how I treated them. And listen, they did something wrong. They were going to not pay for it in a brutal way, but they were disciplined. They weren't allowed out. They got things taken away from them. And on the other side, if they were good kids, they were rewarded. So all those type of things are what I did. But I see too many kids today where mom and dad want to be their buddy because, they feel that that's the way to win them over. And it's not.
Yeah, I could agree. A while back, I did an interview with Deion Sanders, and he was talking about that exact same thing, that too many parents trying to be the buddy, trying to be the friend, and it's really it's not having the proper. I was one of those kids. Just wait till your dad got home, and that was always enough to keep you in line. Just that threat of him coming home was enough to say, "Oh boy," And when you don't have that, and that's why we're filling up the prison systems in this country, Joe, with fatherless kids. I mean, it's not really a big secret science that goes into this. All the bad behavior, all these violent acts, they're all coming from the same source, and that's growing up with a broken family, no father in the home. So we're trying to solve all these other pieces to the puzzle in our society without focusing on the actual rock of our entire foundation, which is the family.
Couldn't be more right. It really is. And the thing about it is you hit it on the head. You go around, and I was listening to a podcast on someone not long ago. I don't remember who it was, but she said it was talking about they asked 100 prisoners in prison to write a Mother's Day card to their mother. And they all wrote a Mother's Day card. And they asked the same 100 prisoners to write one to their father. Not one of them wrote that card. And that's just evidence right there, And the thing about it is this whole, the 60s, 70s free love institute is when it actually jumped into our society. But now it's gotten so bad that, single women get so many things really taken care of for them now. It's almost the husband and wife involved in a relationship. And now they're talking about the other side of it, where 2 men and all that, or 2 women in a relationship bringing up a child. It has to be horrific for a child. Do you imagine what goes through their mind and how everything that they get, in a day-to-day basis, how they really get, tortured with it? I think it's horrible. And everybody's trying to make it the cool thing to do. It's not.
Yeah, we've seen it in our country so much now, and it's being pushed with obviously an agenda in mind, and it's not doing anything, I don't think, but harming our kids. I know we're talking about that we have the big transgender movement. We just saw it take place here in Tennessee. With obviously this horrible school shooting where you had a transgender attacking a Christian school, and I think, unfortunately, and I pray that I'm wrong, I think that's just the beginning of things to come with this and stuff, because there's really no incentive to have some kind of life down the future. There is no long-term plan with this. It's feel good right now. That's it. And that's what this whole thing about. And you have people doing these, giving puberty blockers to kids under 12 years old. You're mutilating and changing the body forever for these kids. And there is no long-term happiness. They're trying to do it in the present, and it's really ruining a lot of lives.
Well, I have a firm belief in that God's not going to put up with it too much longer. And I don't know who can settle it except him. Reason being is because, we've tried to have administrations to do the right things and the wrong things. And I think this woke society and the way people look at doing things today is sad. And all you have to do, and that's why I talk about it from the beginning, I started with the truth. All you have to realize is deal with the truth, and our government doesn't even do that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people prove these politicians liars and stuff like that. And these are the people we vote into office. Listen, I love DeSantis out of Florida. He's a tremendous guy, and he's done a lot of right things. Look at all the feedback that he gets over what he does, and he's a good person. They want all these, like you said, these woke things, the transgender things, mutilating a 15-year-old girl, taking her breast off, and giving her transition, and then 3 years later, she commits suicide. Come on. I mean, if you can't realize that that's not right, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, and if they turn that around and make it seem as if you have an issue with that, you're the problem, and that's the craziest. And you mentioned DeSantis. I've had him on the podcast here when he passed the Florida initiative bill down there, the Fatherhood initiative down in Florida. And I wish more governors would do that, because he is actually one of the most pro-father, pro-parent people in all the politics, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope we see more of that, because that is where all these problems are stemming from. So, and just to get back into this here with you and your kids, I did watch the video, and congratulations on making the Hall of Fame. And I did see the video. Joe Namath coming, giving you the knock on the door. What has this whole thing been like for you? I know it's been a long time coming. What's it been like to finally get the nod and know that you're going to be enshrined into the Hall of Fame, and your legacy will be secure?
Well, it's the ultimate of ultimates, of course. I mean, you take a place where there's 30,000 people that played the game, and I'm 366 of those 30,000. That's pretty awesome, and to be elected into that. And then having Joe come knock on my door was even the iconic Joe Namath, and he is. Joe was the face of the AFL when it started and everything. And he's 85 years old or 84 years old, whatever he is, and he's still the great Joe Namath. So for having him come do that for me, that was really an honor also.
What is it going to be like for you? What do you anticipate now? Having your family there, I'm imagining all your kids will be there in Canton when you get enshrined. Do you have anybody picked out to introduce you yet? And what are your expectations for the moment?
Well, really, the expectations are up in the air. All of them will be there. All my friends will be there. I'm going to have Marty Lyons, my ex-teammate, and give my induction speech, the time that they're going to allow him. But I think it'll be cool. I mean, it's a joyful event, I'm starting my speech and going through my speech and all, and everybody that has a very big poignant part in my life, they're all gone. They're not here no more. So I'm saying it's been a long time for me coming. So we're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a great time, and all the kids there and the grandkids and all. It'll be great. I was talking to two of the guys after the Super Bowl announcement. We were in the back room, and I was talking to Joe Thomas and Rondé Barber, and Joe Thomas is younger than my son, and Tiki Barber, not Tiki, but Rondé Barber is as old as my oldest son. So it's like I'm a little ahead of that. So it's going to be fun.
And speaking of that, I recently had Larry Zonka on the podcast here. He came from that era where football it seemed almost like a completely different game than what we're seeing today and what we're watching. And I got his take on it. And what is yours? What's your take on the biggest differences that you see? And what are your thoughts on football today as you watch it?
Well, I think the rules are placed well with the quarterbacks. Listen, I was thought to hate quarterbacks and so forth, but listen, they're the guys that make the game and taking care of them is good. But there's so many things in football that don't make sense to me. I want somebody out there, even the head of rules official of the NFL, to explain to me what pass interference is. There's so many things that go, and the hitting now, not using the crown of your head. And before I thought it was the offensive player. If he lowered his head also, he was to get, I've never seen that yet. So, the game's upside down. Listen, the game's still a violent game. It's what it was, when I played, and still today it's a violent game, but everybody loves it. Listen, I know everybody likes to say baseball is America's sport, but we know what is America's sport.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And you mentioned there two grandkids. How many grandkids do you have, and what has it been like for you to make that transition from dad to grandpa?
Oh, great. I mean, I have 5 of them. And as a matter of fact, my oldest grandson just won a championship this year and led his team at running back and had over 200 yards rushing. Nathan Klecko, my son Danny, who played, it's his oldest son. And then, we've got a bunch of athletes behind it. I have one girl who's Riley Joe, and she's the apple of Grandpa's eye. We fight all the time. It's funny. But and then I have the newest one. My daughter Gabrielle has a baby that's about 1 year old now. So it's fun. And what's great about it is I love the way they love to come to grandmom's house, not grandpa's house, grandmom's house. And they love to come here, and they enjoy my wife and I extremely a lot. That I like a lot.
Yeah, so cool. I'm not looking forward. I mean, I'm looking forward to that position, but I'm hopefully it's a long way away from me. So I do hear great things about it.
I told all of them, I said, hurry up. I said, I want 20 grandkids. Let's go, guys.
Well, obviously, Joe, getting your bust into the Hall of Fame is going to secure your legacy forever in the NFL. That is secure. But what would you hope that your legacy as a father is?
Really, I says, all I want my kids to do, really, not to know because they know it already. Okay, is it's just that even though Dad was a disciplinarian, that I loved him, and so many people, run by with their kids for so many years, and they leave their parents. They have a tough time with their parents, and I really think it's because they never get to know that their mother and father really loved them. And yeah, it's a big deal, and I think
I'm warming you up for the Hall of Fame speech.
You know what? I've got that down. The Hall of Fame speech is going to be easy because I'm going to have to become a speed reader, because in the Hall of Fame speech, they only give me 10 minutes. So that's going to be easy. I'm going to run right through that. But when you start talking about your kids, the grandkids, and stuff like that, it's always an emotional time. But the greatest part about them is that you have the love for them, they love you back, and basically there's never an ill thought or word between any of us. And the greatest part about it is with my kids is they get on Zooms, not Zooms, but they get on chats every day, and they go back and forth, breaking hump back and forth to each other. And it's they have between my kids' spouses, between my kids, they go back and forth all day long with it, and they turn around and they just love each other. They really do. They love each other. The girls who are entered into my family now, the guys, they love each other back and forth, and it's great.
Well, you can see where it's coming from. You can see the love coming out of your heart and your eyes, Joey. Obviously, you are a family man all the way. And I know we touched on it here a little bit throughout the talk, but the last thing I want to hit you with here, I love to ask all the dads that get on the podcast, what kind of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
I think it's easy. It really is. It's not misunderstandable. You first of all, you got to love them to death, and once they know they have that love and they can come to you with anything. Listen, I was a tough disciplinarian, but the one thing I always wanted my kids to do, if they were in any kind of trouble, I'm the person you come to. Okay. I didn't want them going anywhere else, trying to hide it or doing anything. And you know what? There was a couple of times, a few of them had a few things that they were, not in trouble, but for them it was. And at that time, they came to dad, and that's what I wanted to be. And the other side of it is again, they need discipline. Children love to be disciplined, and when you don't discipline them, want to become their best friend, it never winds up working out, And I think if you start out with that love, which is easy, when that little infant comes into your arms and you're hugging him and all, it's real easy to find out how much you love them. But then as things go on, to make sure they sit in their seat and do it right, that's where it really counts.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. Congratulations again on making the Hall of Fame. You're a first-class father all the way, and thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
My pleasure. It was great meeting you.